Today we are going to discuss our hopes, dreams and fears of the upcoming 10th edition Necron Codex, and it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. So I recently posted on my community tab asking you what you would like to see from the new Necron Codex, which is coming out shortly for 10th edition. I thought it would be an interesting topic for this video. I'm going to mix some of your comments with some of my thoughts on what I want from the new Codex, and we're going to have a discussion about them. Now, I've been playing Necron since 3rd edition. This is my 6th new Necron Codex, and I can tell you I'm really excited. It is a bit scary when you get a new rulebook. However, we have the index card, so we almost know what the rules are going to be, so it's not quite as scary as it has been in the past. But either way, regardless of the rules, good, bad or indifferent, I'll be playing Necrons for sure because I love my Necrons and I love making them work on the table just regardless of the rules. Okay, so let's do this. Now, in my post I didn't ask you about miniatures, however it seemed to be a hot topic because everyone was talking about the actual miniatures themselves. Now, whilst I am going to discuss miniatures in this video, it's a bit awkward because I'm recording this video before Saturday the 14th reveals, and you're going to watch it after those reveals. However, what I do know is the rumours which Chapter Master Valric has talked about, which generally his rumours are pretty true. We're going to get Imitek the Stormlord, which we already knew about, Orokin. I'm going to get a new Orokin miniature and a Lord of some description, but it's probably going to be a Lord. So we'll see. You'll be watching this thinking, no, that was all wrong. This is what we got. But at this moment in time, I don't know what we actually got, but you do. However, it still will be interesting to see what you wanted. So let's have a look at some of your comments. I don't necessarily care too much for the new rules or detachments. I'll play for the love of Necrons regardless. A person after my own heart. What I really want is some new models. An official Lord, a Locust Lord would be awesome. A new Nightbringer. The rest of our Finecast turned to plastic would be awesome. I'm ready. Plastic Locust Destroyers with a plastic Catan tit. Tit? Who wants a tit? And a plastic Catan kit. As I said, there were a lot of comments, but most of the comments really reflects in these two comments which I've shown you here. So effectively we want all of our Finecast miniatures turned into plastic, new cool plastic miniatures. Of course, most of those are our characters. We want new Locust Destroyers because that model is quite old and it's got the green rods in. We know Games Workshop are moving away from green rods, so we are expecting that to be updated at some point. I don't think it's going to be in this particular release, but well, you know more than me. But of course, Catans as well, both the Deceiver and the Nightbringer, which although mine are metal, of course they're being made in Finecast now. We want new miniatures, we want them similar to the Void Dragon in size and in coolness because they're quite old sculpts. Now, a few of you did ask for new units, new miniatures and new units in the Codex. Now, personally, I don't think this is going to happen. We got an awful lot of new miniatures in 9th edition and I just can't see them adding to it. I mean, we've got an awesome amount of characters, so I don't think they'll be adding any characters to the Codex. I know a few of you have been asking for like a flayed one HQ, for example. Some really cool ideas, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Don't think we're going to get a new unit. As I said, I'm not going to ponder too much on miniatures, down to the fact that, well, the release has already happened. So what we are going to discuss next is detachments. Warhammer 40k says, great question. Assuming it follows the trend of the NID and Space Marine codices, then probably the following detachments: Novok for melee, Mefrit for shooting, durability, our existing one, then maybe the Destroyer Cult, something around deep striking and infiltrating, something around vehicles. Now, understandably, the general consensus was the same on this, to have our dynasties from 9th edition translated into the 10th edition data cards. So we're looking for like a melee detachment, maybe something for vehicles, something for Catan, maybe the Canoptic one, the Destroyer Cult one. Quite a few ideas floating around, but most of them within the same sort of bubble. I think we know what we want from our detachments. However, I'm very interested to actually find out what our detachments are, because the Awakened Dynasty detachment is really great. We've got the fantastic stratagem for RP in there, and of course we've got +1 to hit when a unit is joined by a character. However, I haven't necessarily been making the most use of this detachment. I don't think the detachment actually fits my playstyle that much. If you saw my recent Ultimate Necron video that I made, I only had 2 HQs in there, and they weren't actually really helping me with the +1 to hit that much. You need to have a good amount of characters splattered around your army to really benefit from the detachment rule. So yeah, personally, I'm really looking forward to finding out what detachment rules we're going to get and see if they actually suit my playstyle a bit more than the current one. Now, I think we can almost guarantee we're going to get a close combat detachment. I think maybe we might get the Armies of Renown as a detachment for 10th edition. Of course, 2 White Dwarf detachments for 9th edition. We had the Cult one and the Annihilation Legion. I think they could be fun in 10th edition. I'm already playing a Destroyer list anyway, so having a Destroyer Cult detachment would be really handy, and I'm really looking forward to see if we get a Canoptic themed detachment, because, well, my Canoptic army is the only army which I've actually lost a game in 10th edition with, so I'd like to see some tweaks to some of the rules for Canoptic units. Now, in terms of the rules for a Canoptic detachment, that is interesting. I've come up with a few myself. What I would like to see is, I would like to see the Canoptic Spiders go up to units of 3 in this detachment, because a unit of 2 I find just isn't really enough, especially if you're playing a themed list where you just want loads of Canoptic stuff on the table. I think units of 3 spiders, like they used to be, is much better. I'd like to have like an army-wide rule where you get +1 OC on all of your Canoptic units, making Scarab Swarms OC1. I think that would be pretty cool, because at the moment, whilst everyone plays Scarab Swarms, we're not playing them how they're supposed to be played, you know, pushing them out in the front of the army. And I think OC1 would make a massive difference to how we play Scarabs, and of course they would work really well with the spiders following up behind them, generating swarms, etc. Those are the 2 rules which I came up with for a Canoptic detachment. Obviously we're going to have different stratagems for each detachment as well. I'd love to know what you think a Canoptic detachment rule could look like. Let me know in the comments box below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell button to turn on all notifications. Now, Necrons have an array of different units and play styles, which is fantastic. I'm really hoping that Games Workshop do a good job of our detachments to bring those play styles to life, and hopefully to have them all balanced so we don't get 1 or 2 detachments which are the auto include which everyone takes, because we don't really want that, although let's be honest, that's probably going to happen. However, regardless, I will be playing all of the detachments here in my battle reports on the channel, so definitely stay tuned. Good, bad, you'll see them here on the channel. Okay, so let's move on to data cards, and this surprised me quite a bit because hardly anyone commented on rules changes that they would like to see with the data cards. Maybe that puts us in a good spot because we're pretty happy with our index cards and we just don't want too many changes. Or maybe you didn't have any ideas. However, we did have a few comments regarding changes, so let's have a look at them. Let me teleport the Convergence of Dominion around. I don't care if it's overpriced. Let me park a pylon of death onto the centre objective. Invon saves on the monolith and make the Scorpex solid again. The Silent King Menhirs going back to 36-inch range would be nice. Yes, Menhir's range definitely need reverting. Hover keyword for flyers. Feel no pain 6+ for Destroyer Cult members. Whilst this may hurt, make the Transcendent Catan an epic hero and drop the points by 25%. The rules to be actually playtested and not nerfed before the codex drops. Okay, so thanks for those guys. So yeah, the Convergence of Dominion, of course, we know it's way over pointed. No idea why it's 255 points. However, if it is that price, then it needs rules to reflect that price. So yeah, being able to teleport them around a bit more would be fantastic. I mean, I'm thinking like a drop pod maybe. They could just be drop pods. You could sort of put them down and then 10 warriors can get out. Then they can score, be an objective. Something like that maybe. I don't know. It's a hard one, but we need better rules or they need to be cheaper. That's for sure. An invuln save on the monolith, of course, makes sense. I mean, most of our other vehicles have invulnerable saves, so why not the monolith? I mean, even if it was only a 5+ as opposed to 4+, that would be fine. But an invuln save would be fantastic. Even a 6+ invuln save, just something. Scorpec destroyers, I'll admit, they of course got quite nerfed from 9th edition to 10th edition. However, I have played them, and with the Scorpec Lords, they actually performed pretty well. But I see your point. They could be better, and hopefully in the close combat detachment, they will be a lot better if they don't actually adjust the data card. The Silent King, I'll admit, I haven't played the Silent King yet in 10th edition. However, I can certainly see 36 inches on those Menhir guns would be a lot better than 24 inches, regardless of the size of the board. It's just a useful range. Flyers, for sure, need something. I'm not quite sure what, but they definitely need something. A 6+ feel no pain on destroyers. Quite an interesting idea. Be interesting to see if we actually get something like that. And then the Transcendent Catan, make it an epic hero and drop the points by 25%. That of course means that you can only take one Transcendent Catan rather than up to 3. It's an interesting idea. I don't know how well it would go down. Well or not well? Probably not well. As you say, it's going to hurt us, but it would be cheaper in points. Cheaper in points, but you can only take one. The thing is, you can only take one weave, and the weave obviously makes the Transcendent Catan like much better than without it, even though yes, you can teleport it around, etc. So if you had sort of 3 Transcendent Catans, only one of them with the weave, I just don't know. I don't know how great that would be. As I said, I've not played it. I'm sure some of you guys have. Epic hero on the Transcendent Catan, but then made cheaper in points. What do you think? The rules to actually be play tested and not nerfed before the codex drops. Well, obviously the codex was made a long time ago, and 10th edition has already had some updates and data slate changes. So the codex is basically out of date already. So when we get it, I'm sure we're going to get changes after it. It's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, with GW. We'll just have to wait and see. Okay, so my thoughts for data slate changes, and I'm not going to list them all here because I don't want this video to go on forever, but I certainly am going to talk about some of the key things that I would like to see changed. Overall, we do have a great set of index cards. We do have a few units which are on the realms of unplayable, which Games Workshop tried to address with points reductions. Some of them very welcome and turned the units into playable units, like Illuminor Xeres, for example. But some of the units are still not that playable even with the points reductions, like the Obelisk and Triarch Praetorians. Now I kind of feel like Praetorians and the Obelisk rules are actually okay, they're just still overcosted even with the points reductions. I'd like to see both of those units come down again in points. However, Wraiths, they do need some rules changes, whether that's be on the data card itself or in a Canoptic themed detachment. But the Wraiths, they definitely need something. I think they could do with either Assault and Charge or maybe Fall Back and Charge, potentially both. Although that could be done via stratagems. I'd have no issues with that if we had an advance and charge stratagem for a CP like we did in 8th edition. Yeah, time is flying past. Now I've already talked about scarabs and spiders. I do believe that the spiders would be better off in units of 3 rather than units of 2, and scarabs I'd like to see OC1 on them somehow with some form of special rule or buff or whatever. To be honest with you, I don't like how OC0 means you just can't score objectives. I personally would like OC0 units to be able to score objectives, but of course they can then easily be outscored with an OC1 unit on the objective as well. So, you know, they can't contest, but they can score. I think they'd be a lot better that way and more usable as a unit. As I said, they are very usable. I use 2 units of 3 scarabs in pretty much all of my lists, but I'd like to see scarabs having a different role on the table. The Triarch Stalker, a unit again I haven't used in 10th edition yet. It's not a bad unit, 125 points. I just would like to see it with a better gun, with a longer ranged gun like we had in 8th edition. You know, a gun where you could just sit at the back and shoot from distance. I know we've got quite a few sort of heavy gun options, but that would encourage me to take the Triarch Stalker if it had a bigger gun, because that's basically why I don't take it. I'm not saying it's not good, it's just it never seems to fit into my lists. Locust Destroyers, back to strength 6 guns. Strength 5 is not bad, but when you're up against toughness 5 units, and let's face it, there's a lot of toughness 5 units in the game, that means you're wounding on 4s. We do have, of course, the stratagem to re-roll the wounds, but that's not going to be in every detachment. So maybe in the Destroyer Cult detachment you get +1 to strength on destroyers. That'd be pretty cool. Okay, so I'm sure you've been waiting for me to mention this unit, but the Necron Flayed Ones. I've got 60 miniatures, and for many, many years I've played a themed list around 60 miniatures, 60 flayed ones. Really, really cool to see on the table and a lot of fun. However, at the moment, we can only play 3 units of 10, 30 flayed ones. It's not good enough, Games Workshop. Get your act together. We want a detachment where you can take flayed ones as troops, maybe, and we can have 6 units of 10, or let's just have units of 20 flayed ones in this new detachment, because I want to get my 60 flayed ones on the table. What a cool unit it is. I appreciate that the new miniatures are really horrible to build. However, all of my miniatures are the old metal ones, so I'm lucky. Now I'm going to talk about characters. We know that a lot of our characters potentially do need some rules tweaks. We've got some really good characters and we've got some not quite so good characters. I'm sure as we get new miniatures for these units, the rules are going to be tweaked and get better. The Locust Lord, which of course we don't really have a miniature for now, it's the really old miniature. Hopefully when we get a new Locust Lord miniature, we get a lot of cool new weapon options, because he deserves it. Now if you want to see my ultimate list building video, I'm going to link it up for you just there. And here's my Battle Report playlist, where you can see me play some of my lists on the table.